𝓤𝓪𝓻𝓪𝓷𝓬𝓮. Thank you guys so much for joining me here for this very, very profound message today. And yeah, if this has reached you within space and time, and you being a space-time traveler, I'm also hearing an interdimensional traveler, then this is going to be memory moving through the human form. And this is memory, which is the remembrance of who you are. And I'm hearing you being able to embody that as you anchor this awareness into the vessel, and you're here seated in the eternal now. This is what I'm hearing this transmission is designed to do. It's light, which is truth, and consciousness moving through the human form, and you being totally aware of that. Okay, I'm hearing and aware that you're an infinite creator. Not just existing, but playing through its own creation. And I'm hearing it's the creator playing through you. Oh, okay, it's the creator playing through you and your subjective journey. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to talk about what went on in the astral just to open up, and then we're really going to get into it. So in the astral realm, I was talking to someone who had Pluto conjunct their ascendant, and it was like a mirrored reflection. I was like, oh snap, you too, right? And it basically, after that, we were tracking the masculine and feminine lines in astrocartography map, okay, which is about, you know, the map of this earth, and very specific. I'm hearing ley lines, which are energetic gateways, okay? It's almost like it opens up a flood of energy. I'm hearing that is encoded with, I'm hearing upgrades, but if you think about upgrades are updating things. So this could be about updated ways of viewing your reality. Updates are usually also associated with higher octaves. Okay, and also now that I'm thinking about it, almost what's it called? Autophagy, I believe it is, where there's a cellular cleanup. So it's flushing out lower dense vibrational octaves, which are, I'm seeing an octave being a very slow oscillation of vibrational matter, and that being associated with a very specific belief system. So this could be things that you are alchemizing during this time, which is, I'm hearing being able to see where that belief system originated from, and that is allowing you to view something that you have held within you for a long time to be alchemized, because you're viewing it from a higher, broader, universal truth, okay? And you understanding its point of origin allows it to no longer, I'm hearing like, take up real estate in your body, okay? And it no longer disrupts the way that you move through this existence and this experience. So yeah, there could be a level of autophagy that you're moving through just biologically, right? Where I believe fudgy, but it means eating, and auto is going to be self. So it's almost like there's something that has been self-consuming in some way, and it does represent cellular renewal too. So it's almost like you are shifting on a cellular level. If you think about it as well, cells at the nucleus of a cell holds the memory and the DNA. So it's almost like you are clearing up dense debris within the plasma membrane, which is, it's this film. It's a membrane that encompasses the DNA, and it encompasses the nucleus of the cell, which is the center of who you are. And I feel like it's the membrane itself that has become something that has accumulated and disrupted the flow of life force, and mainly into communication. I feel like this is self-trust when it comes to connecting with your higher self-trust when it comes to your connection with source, which is internally within you, and just doubt, I'm hearing, that has been clouding your field in some way. And I feel like that self-doubt is something that you're releasing during this time that you're alchemizing, okay? Anyway, yeah, that's very, very interesting. Anyway, there could be something around an alchemical process that you're going through in regards to that. So let me continue. And if you think about it as well, Pluto energy on the ascendant is it's the physical vessel that your soul is incarnated into, and the soul experiencing life on earth and growth through the physical vehicle. And Pluto is the psyche, it's the interface of where your non-physical meets the physical, right? It's a non-physical aspect of yourself. If you want to think about the ascendant as the avatar that your soul is incarnated into in order to be able to experience life in this matrix, okay? It's like that. It's the interface of where your non-physical essence or the soul meets the physical, okay? And it's the intersection of where your plasma origins, which is source, incarnates into a carbon-based life form in order to be able to experience life in this terrestrial plane, right? And it's like you're kind of adapting to this avatar. But yeah, it represents a person that often acts as a gatekeeper in that way between realms, because Pluto represent kind of the underworld and also things that are hidden and repressed and suppressed, especially when it comes to, you know, memory of esoteric knowledge. And if you think about esoterics as internal explorations that allow you to cover, you know, deep secrets or truths in regards to the true nature of this existence, and it allows you to access that forbidden knowledge, you know, internally, okay? And yeah, it's the intersection, all right? So it's almost like you're at an intersecting point. And yeah, in astrocartography, us drawing the masculine and feminine also represents the masculine being the physical vessel, the feminine being the non-physical aspect of yourself, and being able to have a connection with that, you know, memory. And it also represents the serpent path of alchemy, which we're really going to get into now. So Pluto on the ascendant in the astral could talk about anchoring deep identity shifts that begin to ripple through the matrix. I was going to say shift and ripple at the same time. So it's almost like you are sending out a ripple of shifting not just the way that you move through this existence, but also shifting the way that others see you. First house, right, where the ascendant is, it's almost like others are shifting the way that they see you, because it's a mirrored reflection of where you have shifted the way that in which you see yourself, and that's just being mirrored to you in this energetic simulation, right, or projection. So meeting another Pluto on the ascendant being could be about the recognition of another soul that's walked through similar gates as your own. And this could be about you exchanging codes with just other, I'm hearing variations of yourself. So that's a super interesting term to come through. But yeah, these are other variations of yourself, if you will. And following the astrocartography lines just represents that, you know, the masculine and feminine, it represents the alchemical marriage. And when you harmonize these you know, dual aspects of yourself, you then begin to create the triad, which is about conscious creation and the application of your free will in this existence and how you choose to move through this existence. I'm hearing unbound by fear. So yeah, it's very, very interesting. Pluto is not about destruction, it's about a sacred transformation, and I'm hearing that transformation happens when you have that sacred return within. And Pluto also carries feminine traits in the way where it's known as like a womb, okay, or a void point. And it's almost like in that darkness, you have that primordial space where form is stripped away so that the soul can remember its truth. And, you know, Pluto is often represented as, you know, the snake shedding its skin or the phoenix rising from the ashes. So there is almost like an alchemical process that you're going through where there is a rebirth that's happening as you shed away certain belief systems that you could have accumulated through this experience. And I'm hearing there are things that you're no longer recognizing as your own. Maybe you're recognizing them belonging to, you know, a certain aspect of yourself or a certain version. I'm hearing phase, okay, of yourself that's associated with a very specific chapter of your life. But I'm seeing you not just step into a new chapter, but it's like there is a book that has gone autophagy, and the book is blank and you're writing this story. So that's what it feels like. Anyway, I'm going to talk about this very specific myth because this was coming up in my meditation. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it's about the wingless serpent and the emperor. So it's a myth of the descent, alchemy, and also return. And this is the story of the soul. So this is what I'm talking about as light moves through the human body in the form of memory. So long ago, in a time before time, right? In a time before space and time, and before this matrix, was something I'm hearing was under your design. So it's almost like you're redesigning this matrix in some way, and it's about it's super interesting because of the internal matrix that's shifting. Okay, before this matrix was under your design. Maybe this is before you remembered yourself as like a sovereign creator, and before awakening, you were stardust lost in matter, right? Or a deity that was sleeping in this existence, unconscious of its true power, just to remember it for the pure purpose of being able to remember, right? Which is the illusion of being under the illusion of separation from initially. So this is where your starry origins were at risk of forgetting itself when incarnating into this very dense terrestrial plane. But in a time before the matrix was under your design, there was a serpent who was born with wings, vast and shimmering, things made wings not made of feathers, but made out of a memory. This is about your multidimensional wings, right? And you being a non-physical being and soaring across the sky and the galaxies and the universe. One wing of shadow, one wing of light, and everywhere you flew, and harmony began to follow you, right? And you didn't seek power because you knew that you were a power, right? You were powerful and you were unstoppable. And you were whole and undivided and completely sovereign. But one day, the serpent, right, you guys had a calling from down below, right? This was a realm that was dense, it was slow, right? We have undifferentiated bandwidths of frequency light here in this multidimensional plane that holds many different dimensions and frequencies within it. And this is where souls began to forget who they were, where light was trapped in human form or encompassed in a human form, and the sky lived hidden beyond the veils of sleep. And moving by something so ancient, you began to descend, right? The serpent began to descend. And if you know our universe, we have a constellation called Draco's constellation, right? Which is, it's the constellation that is almost seated above our universe, okay, and has an aerial perspective of our universe. And that's where Draco kind of went on his descent, okay? And, began to coil down in this spiral of worlds, falling through the layers of light and eventually arriving at the gate of Earth, right? This multidimensional plane. So I want you guys to see yourself kind of, in this existence, standing outside the gates of Earth, if you will. And this is where an emperor stood, okay? The emperor is the physical archetype that we're going to talk about that represents, Saturn. It represents time. Okay, so this is where space and time, you were traveling through these dimensions and you entered into the realm of space and time. And restrictions and limitations. That's also what Saturn rules. And, the tangible, the physical. So it was not a man, but the emperor was a force and the guardian of law and time and order, right? So his crown was carved from bone, his robes stitched from the fabric of history, which is, the dualistic aspects of the past, the present, and the future. And the serpent bowed its head. I come to walk the world below, to remember through forgetting. Okay? And the emperor, stern and unyielding, spoke. If you are to enter this realm, you must leave your wings behind, right? You must leave your limitless nature behind for the pure purpose of being able to remember again. I want you to crawl. I want you to bleed. You must taste loneliness so bitter that it begins to turn to gold so that you can experience alchemy, right? I want you to experience the full range of emotion from anger to loss, because there cannot be pleasure without pain here, right? So only then will you understand the truth of soul growth that happens rapidly through polarity, through contrast in this realm. And so you didn't resist, right? The serpent didn't resist. Its wings were folded and then sealed, and its light compressed into skin. And it forgot the sky, shortly after its incarnation. And lifetime after lifetime it crawled, right? In the wheel of karma, right? We have the 12 dualistic archetypes. We have the zodiac wheel, which is basically our universe and the snapshot of it. being at the time of your incarnation, there was a very specific alignments that happened within our solar system, right? Our zodiac constellation or archetypes of this very specific universe is subject to this universe, right? Not to others, but to ours. And this is where you became a woman, and then a man, and then a warrior, and a healer, and an outcast, and a lover, and a child, and you had experienced it all, right? You wept, you laughed, you cried, and all the while something ancient stirred within you, right? Within the spine, right? We're talking about the Kundalini awakening and the coil, which is the repress and suppress memory in the root. So until one day the serpent stood before the emperor once again, not crawling but rising. Right? This is about the remembrance of who you are. I've returned, it said, but not with wings, but with wisdom. And you never really lost your wings, right? You never really lost your cosmic origins or your connection to source, but they were buried into the earth, right? And it's like you see how valuable being a fractal of consciousness that is aware of itself once again is, and how it completely shifts and changes the way that you move through this existence and this experience. And the emperor that was once cold becomes silent. He lowers his gaze, and without a word, he begins to step aside. And the serpent rises, finally. His wings unfold once again. And the wings aren't given, they were never even taken, but they were remembered. In that moment, the sky on the soil were one once again. It was as above, so below. It was as within, so without. Anyway, the tale is quite similar to Osiris. He was dismembered and his body was, severed, and he had to kind of unbury and find all the, scattered fractals of himself in order to be able to come into that reunification. But in order to go through that process in the physical realm, he had to come into reunifying with the non-physical aspect of himself, right? The divine feminine. And it's an initiation that the soul goes through. It's almost like a rite of passage, and it allows you to walk a path of remembering, of devotion, and allow you to go through a process of purification. And the only way that you can purify really yourself is to, first of all, accumulate a lot of debris. And it's funny because I pulled 2 Cosmos Oracle messages, right? And the first one is spiral. Spiral represents a vicious or virtuous cycle, and this is where you can look at life through the lens of chaos, or you can see it through the lens of cosmos, and it can become a virtuous cycle, right? It's where you see time, okay, and the Lord of Time, Saturn, as a spherical model where you get to not see, I'm hearing how circumstances have changed on Earth, but more how you have changed the way that you navigate your way through this existence, okay? And it's I'm hearing it's in a testament and physical evidence of how you have changed. And you have X-rays. So X-rays talks about doctors believe what it is that the X-ray them, even though they can't see it with their physical eyes. So this is about you looking at your life through the lens of the soul. And when you do that, this becomes less of a vicious cycle and it becomes more of a virtuous one, okay? Now, it's super, super interesting. So the return is, by the end, the emperor sees the depth, the wisdom, and the sovereignty that the serpent gains. It's almost like the human sees the true value, okay, and gold that is recovered through looking at life through the lens of the soul. It's like where you begin to see and recover the silver linings in between the stories that you had told yourself and the new story that you get to tell. That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing almost like Saturn is a teacher as well, and we're all teachers and students of life, but I'm seeing students write about the same book, but it can be in a completely different way based upon how they relate to it. And there's something around the essay, right, in this schoolroom, and you will write a complete different story, viewing your experience through the lens of pain versus through a healed lens. And through healed lenses is to write the story based upon the integration of your whole, which is the integration of your soul. Okay. And yeah, the wings are restored in that moment, right? It's not from entitlement, but it's the embodiment. It represents integration of power and humility, and the masculine recognizing the inner still sanctuary that is within him, right? The feminine serpent path. And the emperor asked the serpent, "What have you become, wingless one?" And the wingless one, the soul, realizes that it never really lost its wings. And it only journeyed into the earth to understand why they mattered. In pre-incarnation times, this is about memory of your divine origins, the ability to travel across dimensions, and a luminescent awareness of almost the mission that you're on, which is, you know, rapid soul growth through experiencing contrast and duality in this realm. And before incarnation, you know, you are a fluid being. You are completely formless, much like the dragon flying through the night sky. And it represents your fluid, multidimensional, radiant nature. And as you enter into, you know, from the etheric planes into the physical plane, you can begin to accumulate things that do not originate from your point of origin, but things that originate from this dimensional plane that is only to be experienced and is not to be attached to. And I'm hearing these like constructs, it's ways of viewing yourself. And I'm hearing to remember yourself is to no longer look at yourself through a matrix lens, but through the eternal lens. Because this is just an experience. Nothing belongs to you here, even the belief systems that you accumulate. Right? And as you descend through Draco's gate, the light can be compressed, right? You can begin to forget yourself as you travel through this corridor of immense polarity. And as you enter into Earth's matrix, you are on a path of alchemy, right? I'm hearing even at first there can be, you know, deep anger in regards to the contrast in which you're experiencing here. But then there is a deep compassion that you begin to have. And as you traveled through this experience under the veils of forgetting, right, under the veils of Maya, or, you know, density and shadow, and the dark nights of the soul that you've gone through, only then were you able to discover your light. This is where you remember that you chose to forget so that you can learn through embodiment. Begin to reunify with the emperor, right? This is where there's an integration of your physical and non-physical dual aspects. So there is no longer fear of the unknown. There is no longer fear of death, because you know that's not the ending. Instead, that begins to crumble. And you no longer begin to just coil in this existence, but you begin to rise. You rise up to your divinity, and you don't rise up to try to escape the world, but instead you embody the spirit within. And I'm hearing that's the true testament to your strength. And sometimes you don't know how strong you are in this experience until you're left with no other option. So yeah, you reactivate that within. It's not about external wings, it's about rediscovering your ability to fly above, right? And I'm seeing the eye of the eagle essence, so this is where you can like fly above your human experience and see it through the lens of the soul. But yeah, sorry about the audio, guys. I just realized my mic isn't plugged in totally, so hope you enjoyed that. I hope you could hear it. I mean, those of you who have to listen will listen, and I'll speak to you very, very soon. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, do consider subscribing. We'd love to have you around. Personal reading details also down below. And also check out Spirit's discount code if you guys are looking for some high quality AAA grade jewelry. $1 of the proceeds are donated towards Altar Sanctuaries as well. And until next time, bye!